In this one, I'm going to talk about 3 foods or types of foods that are making you ugly. Number 1, refined and free sugars. So refined and free sugars basically cause a blood sugar spike, and this then causes an insulin spike because it's trying to lower the blood sugar and store the extra energy. So the body will store the energy either in the liver or in the muscles via glycogen stores or as adipose tissue. In other words, fat. These blood sugar spikes, they will worsen your body composition. They will increase the risk of acne because it's correlated. Blood sugar spikes, they often cause acne if you're genetically prone to it. They can speed up hair loss because insulin spikes, they have been shown to overactivate the 5-AR enzyme, which converts testosterone to DHT. And also these blood sugar spikes, they can increase your skin via glycation. Here's a table with the glycemic index of certain foods. Now, just because one is high, that doesn't mean you should not consume it, but this is going to be much higher when it comes to refined carbs and also free sugars, and especially junk food. So things that have white flour or white sugar, they're going to have by far the most glycemic index. So try to eat more whole foods that have either low or moderate glycemic index value, and try to avoid ultra-processed carbs and refined carbs, free sugars, etc. Number 2, foods that are high in advanced glycation end products. Here's a graph showing the increase in carboxymethyl the more you cook something. So carboxymethyl is CML, which is one advanced glycation end product. It's 1 AGE. And you can see that the more you cook something, the higher in AGEs, so in this case, carboxymethyl it's going to be. Here's a table showing certain foods and comparing their AGE content. And one thing that you'll notice is that, of course, processed meats, for example, bacon, is going to have the most by far. And the more you cook something, the more AGEs it's going to produce. But here's something interesting. When you compare legumes, for example, in this case, black beans, it has much lower AGE content than even raw salmon or raw red meat. And tofu, for example, even sauteed tofu, which is basically cooked, it still has a significantly lower AGE content than raw red meat. So if you want to minimize advanced glycation end products, then you should prioritize stuff like legumes when it comes to protein source compared to even raw red meat. Advanced glycation end products have been proven to damage collagen and elastin, so they worsen skin aging overall. So if you want to age faster, then eat the foods that are highest on the list. And if you want to age slower, then prioritize the things that are the lowest in AGE content. For example, legumes, and in this case, black beans. Number 3, foods that are high in saturated fat. So dietary saturated fat is actually the biggest predictor and the biggest cause of high LDL, even more so than dietary cholesterol. And this is a huge predictor of heart disease mortality. So if you want to minimize your chance of getting heart disease, then you should minimize things like butter and red meat, dairy, processed meat, and basically animal fat in general. It's high in saturated fat. And even though biochemically, saturated fat has no double bonds, so therefore it's more stable against lipid peroxidation, when we look at outcomes, the higher the dietary cholesterol and dietary saturated fat, the higher the risk of developing heart disease. This is true regardless of whether you look at observational studies or genetic studies or randomized controlled trials. And with a lot of nutrients, there's a U-shaped curve. There's a certain amount that is not too much and not too little, and you need to sit within that perfect range. However, with LDL, which is short for low-density lipoproteins, it is not a U-shaped curve. It is a straight line. The lower you get, the lower the chance. So the lower your saturated fat intake and dietary cholesterol intake, the lower the chance of developing heart disease. This is not just one correlation, this is causation. When people criticize data when it comes to LDL, they criticize observational data, but they ignore the fact that genetic studies and randomized controlled trials using humans show the exact same pattern. It's both correlation and causation. So if you want to minimize heart disease, you should minimize stuff like butter, red meat, dairy, processed meat, etc. And saturated fat will also increase your inflammatory markers, which is why you see carnivores have terrible blood work. Even those that say that it's the ideal human diet, whenever they show you their blood test, it's always way too high in LDL, way too high in cortisol, they have nutrient deficiencies, etc. So don't trust what people say. Trust how their blood work looks like. And I plan to do a blood test soon, and then I'll share it. And then you'll see that my advice actually works when it comes to health. So again, minimize stuff like butter, red meat, dairy, and processed meats. if you want to minimize the risk of heart disease, but also if you want to improve your looks, because all these things, they're high in advanced glycation end products, they're high in pro-inflammatory compounds, so they're going to increase pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha and IL-6, as well as increase C-reactive protein markers. So again, this is going to be better for your health and also your looks. And by the way, if you want to find out how to become more attractive, including methods that models and Hollywood actors actually use, then click the link in the pinned comment and join my Skoll community.